The research station on Lyrath 7 was a quiet place, surrounded by the sharp cliffs of the alien world. Mist rolled through the jagged rocks every morning, and the air smelled faintly metallic. Inside the station, humans and aliens worked side by side, though not always comfortably. Humans were new here, and their ways were considered strange by many of the alien species. Leo, a human engineer, moved carefully through the corridors, carrying a small toolkit. His boots echoed on the metal floors. Today, he had a simple job, or at least he thought it was simple. A repair request had come in from the warrior division. One of their members, a female warrior named Rava, had a damaged helmet. Not just any helmet, it was one of the sacred types, shaped carefully to fit her species' unique head and facial threads. Facial threads were delicate, hair-like strands that covered parts of the face in patterns unique to each warrior. They were not only personal, but symbolic, representing a warrior's honor, family, and rank. No outsider had ever touched them, not even other warriors from a different clan. The idea of trimming or shaving them was almost unthinkable. Leo paused outside Rava's workshop, adjusting the straps of his tool bag. His mind replayed the briefing he had been given. The helmet was cracked at the base of the threads. If it failed during the next field mission, Rava could be seriously injured. But the task made him uneasy. He had heard stories about Rava, how she was fierce, feared by most, and quick to anger. The last human who accidentally offended her had barely escaped with a warning. He took a deep breath and knocked lightly on the reinforced door. "Enter!" came a low voice from inside. Leo stepped in. The workshop smelled faintly of oil and metal, mixed with something floral he couldn't identify. Rava was standing in front of a table, her helmet on a stand. Her dark skin shimmered in the dim lights, and her sharp eyes followed his every move. Her facial threads moved slightly as she turned her head, almost like they were alive. "I know why you are here, human," she said, her voice calm but dangerous. "But know this, touch my threads, and I will end you." Leo froze for a moment. The words were blunt, unyielding. But he nodded, trying to keep his voice steady. "I understand," he said, "but the helmet is damaged. If it cracks during pressure changes, you could be injured. I just want to help you stay safe." Rava narrowed her eyes, her fingers twitching near the edge of her helmet. "Safe? Do you think a human understands safety? My threads are not yours to touch. No one outside my family may do this." Leo held up his hands slightly. "I don't want to disrespect you. I just want to fix the helmet. Maybe we can find a way that doesn't harm your threads." There was a pause. Rava's gaze softened just slightly, but her stance remained firm. Leo noticed the tiny scars on her hands, signs of battle, signs of pride. He realized that she had fought countless wars and survived them all. She wasn't just a warrior, she was a symbol of strength for her people. Rava let out a low sigh. "You speak boldly for one so small, human. Most would have run the moment I spoke. Why do you not fear me?" Leo shrugged. "I've seen many dangers. A threat like words is not enough to stop me when someone's life is at risk." Her eyes narrowed again. She tilted her head, studying him. For the first time, Leo noticed something different. A flicker of curiosity behind her anger. Most warriors didn't pause to question humans. They merely dismissed them. Rava's attention was focused entirely on him. "I cannot allow it," she said finally, though her voice carried a note of uncertainty. "You may leave now, before I change my mind." Leo stepped closer to the table, gesturing toward the cracked helmet. "Rava, I won't hurt you. I only want to ensure that helmet keeps you alive. If you refuse, you might regret it during the next mission. Please let me help." Her facial threads quivered slightly, almost as if responding to the tension in the room. Rava's sharp features softened momentarily. but she quickly straightened, her fierce aura returning. "You are foolish, human. Very well, you may look, but do not touch my threads, or I swear—" "I understand," Leo said, carefully setting down his tools. He lifted the helmet, examining the crack. It was worse than he had thought. A sharp pressure spike could easily split it further. He frowned, thinking. He realized that trimming some of the threads was necessary to repair the base of the helmet. But how could he do it without offending Rava? Every millimeter mattered. One wrong cut would be seen as an insult, even an attack. Rava watched him silently, arms crossed. "If you harm me in any way, human, I will end you. You understand this, yes?" Leo nodded again. "I do. I promise I won't." He worked slowly, careful to avoid touching the threads. He studied the patterns, memorizing their shape. His mind raced to figure out the best approach. If he trimmed the damaged threads carefully, he could secure the helmet without dishonoring her. Time passed in tense silence. Every move was deliberate. Leo's hands hovered above the delicate threads, not daring to touch them yet. Finally, he found a solution. A tiny clamp that could hold the threads away from the cracked area, leaving the base exposed. He quickly assembled the clamp, adjusting it gently. Rava's eyes followed every movement, unblinking. Leo could feel the heat of her gaze on his back. The room was quiet except for the faint hum of machinery. When he finally secured the base, Leo stepped back. "It's ready," he said. "I just need to carefully trim the damaged threads here. It's necessary to complete the repair. It will be minimal. I promise." Rava's jaw tightened. Her entire body stiffened. "This is a line you do not cross, human. I gave you a chance. You will regret this." Leo looked at her calmly. "Rava, I am not here to disrespect you. I am here to save your life. Please trust me." For the first time, Rava's sharp expression faltered. She hesitated, looking at the helmet, then at Leo. Something in his voice, the quiet determination, the lack of fear, made her pause. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she inclined her head. "Do it," she whispered. Leo's hands moved with care, precision, and respect. He trimmed only the threads that were absolutely necessary. Each cut was deliberate, measured, and careful. He held the helmet firmly, making sure no accidental movement would harm her. Rava stood still, watching intently. Her usual fierce glare softened into something unreadable. She had never allowed anyone outside her family to touch her threads, and yet here was a human, doing it without insult or injury. When Leo finished, he set the helmet on the table and stepped back. "It's done," he said simply. Rava reached out and ran her fingers over the repaired area. There was no insult, no disrespect, just the perfect repair. She looked at Leo, her eyes wide, as if seeing him for the first time. "You survived," she said slowly. "No one else has ever touched this and lived." Leo smiled slightly. "I only did what was necessary. You would have been in danger otherwise." Rava did not speak for a moment. The silence between them was heavy, but different from before. Leo could sense a change, subtle but real. The human had risked her wrath for her life, and he had done it calmly, without complaint. Why did you do this?" she asked finally, her voice softer, almost unsure. Leo shrugged. "Because it's the right thing to do. People should help each other even when it's hard. That's what I do." Rava's eyes searched his face, trying to understand him. Humans were strange creatures. They did not follow the same rules, the same customs. Yet somehow, they could act with courage and care that few aliens could match. She did not respond further. Instead, she picked up the helmet and placed it carefully on her head. It fit perfectly, the crack gone, the threads unharmed. She tested it, flexing her neck and shoulders. Everything was secure. Finally, she looked at Leo again. "You are different, human. Do not expect me to forget this." Leo nodded. "I don't want you to. I just hope you stay safe." Rava turned sharply and walked out of the workshop, leaving Leo to clean his tools. But even as she left, he felt the weight of her gaze. There was respect there, faint but undeniable. Perhaps, for the first time, a human had touched a part of her world and changed it, not with force, but with care. Leo sighed and leaned against the table. He had completed his task, but something told him this was only the beginning. The warrior Rava would not easily forget a human who dared to touch her threads and save her life. Outside the window, the mist rolled over the cliffs once more, but inside the station, a subtle shift had occurred. Trust had been planted where there was none, and a quiet bond was forming between two very different worlds. Leo packed up his tools, unaware that his careful actions today had already begun to ripple through the station. Whispers would spread, stories would form, and soon everyone would wonder how a human had dared what no one else could. For now, though, he simply walked back through the corridors, ready for whatever came next. The following days were tense at the research station. Leo's careful repair of Rava's helmet had not gone unnoticed. Whispers followed him through corridors, murmurs from aliens who could not understand why a human had dared touch the sacred threads of a warrior and lived to tell about it. Some were in disbelief, others in admiration, but all watched him cautiously. Rava, however, remained silent. She moved through the station with the same sharp precision as before, but now there was a quiet awareness in her steps. She noticed Leo in ways she had not noticed before, how he moved carefully around the station, how he observed machines with thoughtful eyes, how he never acted without purpose. Most humans were clumsy, noisy, and impatient. But Leo was different. Leo, meanwhile, returned to his usual work in the engineering bay, repairing equipment, checking systems, and performing routine maintenance. Yet he could feel Rava's gaze on him sometimes, sharp but curious, watching him as he worked. He did not act differently. Humans were not known for dramatic gestures, and he preferred letting actions speak louder than words. One morning, a call came from the Warrior Division. "Engineer Leo, report to the assembly room immediately," the message said. It was brief and formal, as expected from the warrior leaders. Leo felt a small spike of tension in his chest. He did not know what to expect, but he suspected it involved Rava. When he entered the assembly room, he was met with a room full of alien warriors, each one standing tall and alert. At the center, Rava stood with her repaired helmet under her arm. Her threads glimmered in the room's dim lights, neat and unbroken. "Human," she said, her voice echoing slightly, "you have done something unusual." "I only repaired your helmet," Leo replied calmly. "That was all." The warriors around her murmured among themselves. One of them, a taller male with ridges along his forehead, stepped forward. "No human has ever touched a warrior's threads without insult. How do you claim to understand our ways?" Leo looked at him steadily. "I don't fully understand your culture, but I do understand danger. Your helmet would have failed and you could have been hurt. I wanted to prevent that." Rava's eyes flicked to him. There was a moment of silence, and then she spoke. "You acted boldly, human. Perhaps too boldly. But the helmet is intact, and I remain unharmed. That is remarkable." The murmuring among the other warriors grew louder. Some whispered that humans were reckless, some that humans were surprisingly clever, and a few wondered if this one human had done something extraordinary. Leo remained calm. "I only did what I could. You do not owe me anything." Rava's expression shifted. She studied him with quiet intensity. "No one else would have dared. Perhaps There is more to humans than I imagined. Over the next several days, Leo continued his work on other projects. But the incident with Rava had opened a small door between them. She began allowing him small glimpses into her world. She did not speak openly, but she would sometimes observe him at work, making sure he had access to the tools and equipment he needed. One afternoon, Leo noticed her standing silently outside the engineering bay. She did not enter. She simply watched him as he adjusted a power conduit. Her gaze was sharp, but there was a faint hint of curiosity, a question that went unspoken. Finally, she spoke. "Human, why do you not fear me? Most would cower at my words." Leo wiped his hands on a cloth and looked at her. "I have faced many dangers in my life. Words alone are not enough to stop me. I act based on what needs to be done, not on fear." Rava tilted her head slightly. "Your courage. It is unusual. I have seen many warriors, but they act because they are trained or because they have pride. You act from something else. Why?" Leo thought for a moment. "I help people because I want to. That's all. There is no greater reason than helping someone in need." Rava's lips pressed into a thin line. She was unaccustomed to this kind of honesty. Humans, in her experience, were unpredictable and often self-serving. Yet here was one who acted purely to help, without expectation or gain. She found herself unsure how to react. That evening, an alarm rang through the station. A small power surge had caused a containment breach in one of the experimental labs. Smoke filled the hallways, and the automated doors had locked. The station protocols required immediate evacuation, but a few researchers were trapped inside. Leo grabbed his toolkit and ran toward the lab without hesitation. Rava appeared shortly after, her armor glinting in the emergency lights. The other warriors followed cautiously, as if unsure how to act around this human. Inside the lab, Leo moved quickly. He bypassed the locked doors and stabilized the containment fields, allowing the trapped researchers to escape safely. Rava observed, impressed. She had faced dangerous situations countless times, but she had never seen a human act with such calm and precision under pressure. When the last researcher was safe, Leo looked at the damage. A minor structural collapse had occurred, but it was manageable. "It will take time to repair fully, but no one is hurt," he said. Rava stepped closer, her armor clinking softly. You did not hesitate. Many warriors would have been cautious. Worried about protocol or honor, you simply acted." Leo smiled faintly. "I acted because it needed to be done. That is all." The warrior looked at him, and for the first time she seemed to hesitate in her usual rigid posture. She had always valued strength, skill, and adherence to rules, but here was someone who valued action and life above all else. Over the next few days, the station's atmosphere shifted subtly. Whispers about the human who repaired a warrior's threads and saved lives spread quickly. Some aliens were skeptical, some curious, but everyone acknowledged that Leo's actions had been extraordinary. Rava, however, remained quiet. She was not one to speak lightly, and she still carried the sharp edge of caution. But she found herself watching him more often, noting small details. How he helped others without complaint. How he approached machines with care, and how he treated every life, human or alien, with respect. One morning, Leo was working on a small power generator when Rava approached. She carried a small device of her own, one used by warriors to track armor performance. "Human," she said, "observe this." He looked up, curious. "What is it?" "It is a device that measures the strength and flexibility of armor threads," she explained. "Most warriors rely on it blindly, but it can fail if not adjusted properly. I want you to see how it works." Leo studied the device carefully. He realized it was complex, but the principle was simple. He adjusted a few settings and suggested a minor modification that would make the readings more accurate. Rava watched silently, then nodded. "You think differently," she said finally. "Most warriors would never see the improvement. You improve without taking credit." Leo shrugged. "I only want things to work better, that is all." Rava did not reply immediately. She turned and walked away, but Leo could sense her thoughts lingering. For someone as proud as her, she was beginning to understand that humans were capable of actions and decisions unlike any alien she had known. Later, as the sun dipped behind the cliffs of Lyrath 7, Leo looked out from the engineering bay. The mist rolled over the jagged rocks, and the station's lights glimmered like stars below. He reflected on the past few days. What had started as a simple repair job had grown into something far more complex. Trust, respect, and curiosity had quietly taken root between him and a warrior who had once sworn to end him. Rava, standing a short distance away, watched the human thoughtfully. She had expected fear, hesitation, or even failure. Instead, she had witnessed skill, courage, and care beyond what she had imagined. Her thoughts were unsettled. She had spent her life trusting very few, and here was a human earning her attention without even asking for it. The station hummed quietly, the mist rolling through the cliffs, and a subtle change had begun. For the first time, Rava allowed herself to consider that a human, so different, so strange, and yet so capable, could be someone worth noticing. Leo returned to his work, unaware of the weight of his actions on her mind. Small as they seemed, these moments were shaping something new between them. A bond built not on force, threat, or tradition, but on understanding, courage, and simple acts of care. And somewhere deep inside, Rava felt the stirrings of something she could not yet name: respect, trust, curiosity, perhaps even something more. The human had gone further than anyone had imagined, and the warrior's world would never be the same. The days that followed the lab incident brought a new energy to the station. Word had spread quickly. The human engineer had not only repaired a warrior's sacred helmet, but had also acted decisively to save lives during a crisis. The whispers of admiration, disbelief, and cautious respect filled the corridors. Aliens who once doubted humans began to look at Leo differently. Yet for all the attention, Leo continued his work with the same quiet determination. He did not seek praise or recognition. His goal was always simple: fix problems and help where he could. But one person watched him with more intensity than anyone else: Rava. The warrior had grown more curious about the human. She had expected fear, hesitation, or incompetence. What she found instead was precision, skill, and a calm focus she had rarely seen, even in her own warriors. Slowly, she began to let him into small parts of her world. She allowed him to observe some of the warrior training sessions, though he never participated. His role was to study and understand, not to fight. One afternoon, as Leo adjusted a power distribution panel near the training yard, Rava approached him with a small, heavy armor piece. It was one of the outer shoulder plates, cracked slightly in battle. "This is yours?" he asked, carefully taking it in his hands. "No, it belongs to another warrior," she replied. "But the damage is common. Most of my people would simply replace it, waste resources, and continue fighting. I want you to try something different. Fix it so it lasts longer." Leo examined the plate. It was a sturdy material, almost indestructible in most cases, but stress fractures had formed. "I can do that," he said, "but I will need time and some modifications." Rava nodded, her usual sharp gaze softening. "You have time. Do what you think is best." He worked quietly, studying the material, testing small reinforcements, and adjusting stress points. The warriors around him whispered among themselves, skeptical but curious. No human had ever worked on their armor in this way. To the warriors, humans were clever with machines, but they rarely understood the unique needs of armor designed for alien physiology. As the hours passed, Leo made careful improvements. The shoulder plate now had reinforced stress points and a better fit for movement. He even added a small device that could monitor strain and alert the wearer if it approached dangerous levels. It was a simple innovation, but for the warriors, it was revolutionary. When he presented it to Rava, she examined it with intense scrutiny. Her fingers traced the new reinforcements and the tiny monitoring device. "You improved it," she said quietly. "No one else would have thought of this." Leo shrugged. "I only looked at the problem differently. That is all." But the change was already noticeable. The warrior who wore the repaired armor tested it in the training yard. Movements were smoother, impact resistance was better, and the stress monitoring device prevented unnecessary strain. The other warriors began to take notice. Rava, standing a short distance away, watched Leo with something close to admiration. She had expected a human to fail, to misunderstand, to offend. Instead, he had gone further than anyone imagined. Not only had he repaired her sacred helmet, but he had also improved the tools and armor of her entire division. Over the next few days, Leo continued making small improvements, some in armor, some in equipment, and some in procedural devices that helped monitor station safety. Each innovation was practical, carefully considered, and designed with respect for the warriors' culture and needs. The station began to change. Warriors who had once ignored humans or treated them with suspicion now watched Leo, studied his methods, and quietly applied some of his techniques to their own work. Rava noticed this with a mixture of surprise and concern. She had always believed her people were unmatched in their precision and discipline. Yet here was a human quietly inspiring change, without taking credit or showing pride. One evening, Rava approached Leo while he was testing a new stabilization device for the armor plates. The device allowed the plates to absorb more force without affecting the wearer's movement. "You continue to go further," she said, her voice measured but soft. "You do not stop at one task. You improve, adjust, and think beyond what is required." "Why?" Leo paused and looked at her. "Because it is the right thing to do. I do not stop at the minimum. If I can make it better and help more people, why would I not?" Rava's eyes flicked to the device, then back to him. She had seen humans before, but none had this combination of skill, calm, and persistence. Most humans acted out of self-interest or curiosity. Leo acted from something deeper. She did not fully understand it, but she recognized its power. Days later, a test mission was scheduled in the station's training zone. Rava and several warriors were to perform complex maneuvers while wearing their repaired and improved armor. Leo was invited to observe the results, though he did not participate directly. As the warriors moved, it became clear how effective Leo's modifications were. Armor stress was reduced, movement was easier, and monitoring devices provided real-time feedback that allowed them to adapt instantly. The warriors themselves were impressed, though they did not show it openly. Rava, however, could not hide her amazement. She had never seen anyone, alien or human, improve their equipment so effectively and with such understanding. She realized that Leo's contributions were not just clever engineering, they were transformative. After the exercise, the warriors gathered. Many approached Leo quietly, asking questions or seeking advice. Some even allowed him to adjust minor aspects of their armor personally, though Rava watched closely, ensuring respect was maintained. "You have changed the way we see humans," Rava said finally, once the others had left. "Most would never touch our sacred threads, let alone improve our armor and devices. You Went further than anyone imagined. Leo smiled faintly. I did what I could. I only want to help. That is all. Rava studied him. Her usual pride and caution were still present, but something else was forming. Trust, respect, and perhaps curiosity. She had always believed that humans were fragile and unpredictable, yet Leo had demonstrated patience, skill, and courage. The following days brought more opportunities for Leo to assist. He designed a portable device that could help warriors monitor armor alignment during missions, reducing strain and risk of injury. He helped improve communication devices that allowed quicker coordination without relying on slow station channels. Every small improvement spread quickly, quietly transforming the efficiency of the warrior division. Throughout it all, Rava remained nearby, observing his methods, asking questions, and occasionally offering guidance. She did not fully understand why he acted this way, why he risked his safety for the sake of others, and why he never demanded recognition. But she could see the results, and they were undeniable. Late one night, as Leo worked alone in the engineering bay, Rava entered quietly. She did not announce herself, nor did she speak immediately. She simply watched him as he adjusted a delicate circuit. "You are relentless," she said after a moment. "No one else would continue so carefully, so patiently, and with such attention to detail. You have earned more than respect, human. You have earned our attention." Leo looked up from his work. "I do not seek attention. I only do what is right." Her eyes narrowed, studying him. "Perhaps that is what makes you extraordinary. You act from principle, not fear or pride. That is rare among any species." Leo returned to his work quietly, but Rava remained for a few more moments, watching. She could feel a subtle shift within herself, a new understanding of humans, a recognition that courage and care could come in forms she had never imagined. Before leaving, she placed her hand lightly on a nearby console, a silent acknowledgement of the bond forming between them. She did not know what it meant fully, but she sensed that their connection, born from respect and action, was stronger than words. The station hummed quietly, the lights reflecting off metal floors and armor plates. Outside, the cliffs of Lyrath 7 glimmered faintly under the pale sun. Inside, small but significant changes had taken place. A human had dared to touch sacred threads, improve warrior tools, and inspire respect in a culture that valued tradition and strength above all. Rava knew one thing clearly. This human had gone further than anyone in her world had ever imagined, and she did not know if she would ever see another act like it again. The following week, a critical mission was announced by the Warrior Division. An old exploration sector on Lyrath 7 had experienced a series of structural collapses during recent storms. The mission required careful navigation of unstable terrain and precise teamwork. Rava and several other warriors were assigned to assess and secure the area, and Leo was invited to join as a technical consultant. The moment he entered the mission room, Rava's sharp eyes met his. There was no anger, no threat, only focus. Yet beneath the surface, an unspoken tension lingered. The warriors trusted him because of his skills, but trust and acceptance were two different things. Leo had gone further than any human before, but he still had to prove himself in real action. "Human," Rava said, her voice steady, "this mission will test more than your mind. Are you prepared to act if danger arises?" Leo met her gaze evenly. "I am prepared. I will do what is needed." Rava studied him for a long moment, then nodded slightly. "Very well. Follow our lead. But remember, caution is necessary. Lyrath 7 is unforgiving." The team departed in armored transports. The journey was quiet, filled with the low hum of engines and the occasional murmur of the warriors preparing their equipment. Leo observed carefully, taking notes on the terrain, the equipment, and the strategies of the warriors. He noticed subtle inefficiencies, small adjustments that could prevent accidents and improve performance. When they arrived, the explorers found the collapsed structures more dangerous than expected. Cracks ran deep through the cliffs, and loose rocks littered the slopes. A sudden tremor shifted part of the ground beneath them. Rava moved with grace, adjusting her footing and keeping her team steady. Leo quickly deployed a stabilizing device he had designed during earlier exercises. It anchored several loose sections and prevented a minor rock slide from harming the warriors. "Human!" Rava called over the noise, her voice carrying both surprise and approval. "That saved time and prevented injury." Leo shrugged lightly. "It's what I designed it for." The team continued cautiously. At one point, a large slab of rock began to tip over a steep edge, threatening the warriors below. Leo acted without hesitation, using a portable support beam and reinforced clamps to stabilize it temporarily. The maneuver required precise timing and careful calculation. Rava watched him, her usual composure momentarily giving way to surprise. She had trained warriors to handle unstable terrain for decades, yet the human had anticipated and corrected a dangerous situation almost instinctively. After hours of careful work, the mission team reached the central collapse zone. A massive chamber had caved in, trapping part of the terrain and blocking access. The warriors needed to clear it carefully without triggering further collapses. Leo studied the structure, analyzing weak points and suggesting modifications to their lifting equipment. "If we shift the support slightly and brace here," he said, pointing to the cracked wall, "we can move the debris safely without destabilizing the surrounding rock." Rava leaned in to examine his plan. She was impressed by the precision of his calculations. "No warrior I know would have approached it this way," she said softly. "Your mind works differently than ours. You think in layers, not just force." The team followed Leo's plan carefully, and the debris shifted smoothly. The chamber opened, allowing access to the deeper caves below. The warriors moved forward, noting that the operation had been safer and faster than they had anticipated. During the rest of the mission, Leo continued to guide the warriors through dangerous passages, improvising safety measures and improving equipment efficiency. His actions prevented injuries, reduced fatigue, and allowed the team to accomplish more than they had expected. By the end of the mission, the warriors were exhausted, but safe. They gathered near the transport for debriefing. Rava stood before them, her posture upright and commanding, yet her expression carried something new: quiet respect. "Human," she said, her voice calm but firm, "your actions today went beyond what any warrior expected from your kind. You anticipated danger, improved our tools, and ensured our safety. You have earned not only my respect, but the respect of all present." Whispers ran through the group. Many warriors, some skeptical at first, now looked at Leo with acknowledgement and admiration. He had done what no one else had dared. A human had gone further than their expectations, not through strength or combat, but through intelligence, foresight, and courage. Leo looked at Rava. "I only did what was necessary," he said quietly. "I do not seek praise." Rava studied him, then nodded. "Perhaps that is why your actions are so remarkable. You act without ego. You act because it is right." For a moment they stood silently, the wind of Lyrath 7 swirling around them. Leo's presence had changed more than the mission outcomes. It had challenged assumptions, broken stereotypes, and inspired warriors to see humans in a new light. Later, back at the station, Rava approached Leo privately. The hallways were quiet, dimly lit by the station's soft glow. "You saved lives today," she said. "Not just mine, not just the warriors, but the entire mission's. And you did it without complaint, without hesitation." Leo looked at her, letting a small smile appear. I did what I could. That is all. She studied him carefully. For someone as proud and disciplined as Rava, her usual defenses were slowly lowering. She had expected humans to be unpredictable, clumsy, or self-serving. Leo had proven otherwise. You went further than anyone imagined, she said softly. Not just with my helmet, not just with the armor, but with everything. You have changed the way we see humans. And perhaps you have changed the way I see them as well. Leo shrugged. I do not know about changing worlds. I only know I act when needed. Rava's gaze softened, and for the first time, she allowed a hint of vulnerability to show. You act with courage, precision, and care. These are qualities I value, though I did not expect them from a human. The two stood quietly, sharing a moment of understanding. The bond between them had grown from mutual respect, trust, and the actions of one human who dared to go further than anyone had thought possible. In the following days, the changes were evident throughout the station. Warriors began seeking Leo's advice, using his techniques, and observing his careful methods. Even those who had doubted him found themselves inspired by his calm determination and skill. Rava, once known for her fierceness and strict adherence to tradition, now occasionally consulted Leo on equipment improvements and strategic decisions. She did so quietly, without announcing it, but her respect was clear. She recognized that his contributions were more than clever engineering. They were a symbol of what humans could achieve when they acted with care, courage, and foresight. One evening, as Leo worked late in the engineering bay, Rava entered silently. She did not announce herself, nor did she demand attention. She simply stood and observed, watching the human at work. You have changed more than just tools and procedures, human, she said softly. You have shown that courage, care, and thoughtfulness can surpass fear, tradition, and expectation. You inspire us. Leo looked up, calm as always. I only do what I can. That is all any of us can do. Rava studied him for a long moment, then finally nodded. Perhaps that is why you are extraordinary. You act without expectation, yet your actions ripple far beyond your intention. You have gone further than anyone imagined, and you have earned something rare in my world: trust and respect. For the first time, she allowed a faint smile. It was small, subtle, but meaningful. Leo returned to his work quietly, letting her words linger. The respect was mutual, even if unspoken. In the weeks that followed, Leo continued his work, assisting with missions, improving equipment, and guiding the warriors where his expertise was valuable. Rava remained nearby, often observing, sometimes offering advice, and gradually acknowledging the human who had gone further than anyone in her culture thought possible. By the time the next mission was scheduled, the station had transformed subtly but significantly. Humans were no longer seen as fragile outsiders. They were observers, helpers, and contributors capable of courage and insight beyond expectation. And at the center of this change was Leo, the human engineer who dared to touch sacred threads, improve warriors' armor, and act with care, intelligence, and courage. As the sun set over Lyrath 7, casting long shadows across the cliffs and the station, Rava stood beside him for a brief moment. She did not speak, but her presence was acknowledgement enough. The human had earned her trust, her respect, and something more. A place in the story of her people's evolving perspective. Leo, as always, smiled faintly. He had not sought recognition. He had not sought friendship or allegiance. He had acted simply because it was the right thing to do. And yet the results were undeniable. He had gone further than anyone imagined, and the world, both human and alien, had quietly begun to change.